Welcome everyone to the CMMC Professionals Network, our weekly CMMC roundtable. Invite guests to come on and just kind of have an open discussion where it's not formal, it's not intimidating, just have conversations. So I'm thrilled today we have Zach Walker joining us. He is the co-founder of ATX Defense, which is a C3PAO and also an MSP. So he's going to give us a lot of good insights on his journey as a C3PAO. Welcome, Zach. How are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's good. Good weekend. Had a chance to catch up a bit. Lots happened in the last week or so. So a really good time to be on and happy to share everything that I have learned from this last 2 years of the CMMC journey. And it's good. It'd be good if it stays a small group because I do hope it is more of a conversation and especially if this group is primarily those interested in becoming a C3PAO or doing more of the consulting work side. And as I said, I'm happy to share everything I've learned and all the mistakes I've made in the last 2 years. And
what? You made some mistakes along the way? I don't believe it.
Yeah. I'm told all the time I made a huge mistake by going with Google and not Microsoft GCC High. So that's the first one. Just keep making them.
I'm surprised you didn't put up a firm protest of me having you join Microsoft Teams. I know you're a Google guy.
I know, it's okay.
That's
okay.
For another roundtable. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Zach. Things that people typically don't know about you.
Well, I guess I started my CMMC journey in a sense when I enlisted in the Army National Guard after 9/11. I was 18. Shortly after 9/11 and joined, did that while I was in college, became an officer in 2006, the intelligence officer. And I was very lucky that the Army let me become the signals intelligence officer, which was a special, kind of like a follow-on course. That was always a computer guy into cyber kind of things as much as you could be in the early 2000s. I watched The Matrix and wanted to do that stuff, right? So yeah, joined the Army, did that, became an officer, did SIGINT. I ended up being able to get to the NSA through that in first Army and then as a civilian, focused more on cyber intelligence, spent some quality time in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pentagon, places like that, upgraded the Air Force 2012 and mainly just so I could focus more on cyber warfare. And the last job I had in DC was at the agency as an instructor in their cyber side as well. Got back to Austin, that's where I'm now, beautiful Austin, Texas, and went on active duty with the Defense Innovation Unit. Back then it was called Defense Innovation Unit Experimental, DIUX. There's this really cool idea that startups could work with the DoD, get contracts pretty quickly and bring important technology, AI, cyber, autonomy into the government. And it was critically needed. And it's really amazing what they were able to accomplish. As a PM, my first project, I think we got to start up like $5 million in 26 business days, which is unheard of in government contracting. But, we were meant to move fast and do this work. And that was really where I learned what it was like to be a small business and to work with them and just to see the struggles that they go through and understand that the good ones, right, the ones that have other options, they aren't in the DoD business because it's easy or fun, right? They're doing it because, either maybe it's some patriotism, but, patriotism only lasts so long. Eventually there has to be some kind of profit, right? Business can't live without it. So I got that appreciation. So then fast forward, actually I have some slides I think that can help tell the story, but basically that was my background, still in the Air National Guard somehow. Not sure. Oh, is my connection breaking up?
No, I hear you. So
okay, sir.
I guess another last thing about your background. So I know you're going to be retiring soon from the Air National Guard.
Very soon. I feel like we can't do enough.
Thank you for your service.
Very soon. Thanks. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to doing some getting long hair. I used to joke and say, that's now that I will be out, I can become an alcoholic and do all those terrible things, but I can't do that because if I do that, I might end up getting nominated for SecDef, and I don't want that to happen. So, anyway, got some slides.
So C3PAO
officer, yeah. Let's talk slides. See if I can figure this out. All right. This morning I had ChatGPT or Dolly try to create an image that describes what it's like to be a C3PAO MSP in this world, and I think that does a pretty good job of fighting it. I feel like a lone warrior and all these people with shields are all the other MSPs. And I think, the Cyber AB is probably in there somewhere. It's a really interesting market. It's a really interesting place. There's a lot of bad information. There's a lot of information asymmetry. And unfortunately, a lot of companies that think that they can profit either on the MSP side or on the C3PAO side because of that information asymmetry. And it ultimately ends up in a bad experience for especially the smaller businesses, again, especially the ones that have other options that aren't ever going to spend $250,000 to become CMMC compliant. So anyway, yeah, that's just how I feel like in a normal day, but it's definitely a fight worth fighting. So we get to that. Why become a C3PAO? Glad you asked. I'd like to start off quoting the esteemed philosopher Rihanna. That my business partner Sean and I, we found love in a hopeless place. We were in the army together. We were in Iraq about 18 months if you count the combat time and the deployment, post deployment time. We always wanted to work together. We decided we would start a business. Long story short, COVID had other plans and opened up an opportunity for us to start doing consulting work for the military here in Austin, which has been really amazing. If anyone has questions, happy to chat about it. Don't want to spend too much time on it, but we're essentially helping the Army and Marines build software development capabilities in their service using soldiers and Marines, so that in the future, if we get in a combat situation, we actually have the institutional capability to do software development. So it's really cool. And part of that, through that, we became a Google partner. And I believe we got the first DoD contract for to be capable of Google Workspace in 2021. So that's kind of how it started. It wasn't, CMMC was not on the radar, but we got to understand how to make Google Workspace compliant. And we knew that it could be done because they had an IL4 ATO. So when I started researching the CMMC, I got a quote from a Microsoft reseller, and it was this. It was actually a little bit more. I edited the numbers a little bit. But this is pretty much it. I called and said, hey, I have 5 people at the time. We'd like to get a quote just to become CMMC compliant because we knew we need to for our work. And that was what they told us. And,
a sticker shock. Did you fall out?
There may be children on the line, so I won't say what I don't know if I said to them, but certainly said other people in my company. But basically what Ukraine told Russia's warship at the start of the war about 3 years ago. Yeah, if there's slides I'm presenting, you may need to open up a different window. It's Teams, so it probably isn't going to work.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see the slides. So I don't know if anyone else having trouble.
I guess I'm sharing the show again. Maybe it'll pop up for people.
Yeah, someone else.
Yeah, I can see it just fine.
Cool. Thanks for letting us know. And I meant to mention earlier, for the audience, if you have questions as Zach talking, again, this is an open roundtable. Feel free to come off of mute, ask questions, be respectful, but ask questions if you do have questions.
Well, it's fine. All good. So yeah, this is what we were told, and it was very clear to me coming from Defense Innovation Unit that if this really was what we're expecting small businesses to do, we're going to destroy the defense industrial base. There's no way. They're not going to do this. First off, the Army's median contract value for a small business is $88,000 a year. That's revenue, not profit. So let's say even if they had 20% profit, We're talking $15,000, $16,000 a year in profit. They are not going to spend $250,000 on a CMMC solution. It's not going to happen. So they're either going to leave defense industrial base, or more likely they'll just lie like they've been doing. And say they do it. And Rick, that is actually not the highest price I've seen on here. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It became very clear because at this point I'd become a CCA, which is not hard and certainly helps having a security clearance in me a lot faster. It was very obvious that all this margin, obviously GCC hides rip off, it's expensive. I get it. There's like a virtual desktop solution, but technical support, documentation, configuration, this is all information asymmetry. And this organization thought, I can get an insane amount of money because we can do something that you don't have time to do or don't know to do or don't want to do. And I thought that was really the biggest opportunity for trying to cut out a little bit of the asymmetry and make it more fair is, what if I made a document on how to configure Google Workspace and made it free, right? So then no one could charge $40,000 for it. So I did that.
Hold on, free. But it's like a lead magnet, right? When you say free?
Yeah, it's free. I mean, I also go to a site. It's got a wall. You got to put your name and email address in, and then you get spammed. Yeah, I hate those. It may not be the best. May not be the best businessman, but that is not what we do. We just have an open page. It's a Google Doc. Anyone can look at it. There's no recording. I just don't have time to spam people that look at it. Actually, put in the chat if anyone, not that anyone necessarily here cares about it, but I will chat is only available during the meeting. Anyway, CMMC guide.atxdefense.com if anyone wants to check it out. So we did that.
I'll put it in.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and ended up building out a whole CMMC solution, which I'm happy to chat about, but I wanted to focus more on the C3PAO side on this one, because what was really, I think, interesting was how this started was Google reached out in early 2023 and said, because we were, kind of de facto like the CMMC for them. They said, hey, we have this really important client that is looking for some CMMC consulting. They're looking for a gap assessment, looking for some help, but they want a C3PAO to do it. It's like, huh, that's weird. I thought that RPOs were the organizations that were supposed to do that. So I started doing the research and it became very obvious. An RPO and a C3PAO, they're the same. They can both do consulting. They don't ever have to do assessments. They can be the same thing, except the difference is that a C3PAO has proven that they can pass themselves through a CMMC assessment. So it's way more legitimate than an RPO. At least at the time in 2023, reading some of the horror stories in the CMMC Discord about what different RPOs had advice they'd been given and different things that had happened. It did not seem like hitching our wagon to RPO was going to be the best idea for the organization. At the time, anyway, the price was the same. I think it's changed, but at the time it was like $6,000 for either ones. I was like, well, I guess it'll be a C3PAO. Plus, we had been working on building out this CMMC solution, and so it would be a really good opportunity to essentially get a free assessment. Wouldn't count as a certification assessment, but if we made it through, we could at least say, hey, DoD DIVCAC had no problem with it. So it's probably de-risked a little bit for customers. So we decided to go for C3PAO. Man, it is expensive. I don't know if that's something that you have tracked. There's so many things that you have to do in here. I mean, it worked out because we were looking to become an MSP. So things like cyber insurance, things that you don't realize. It's pretty wild, actually, talking to an insurance broker. Many companies offer cyber insurance, but then as soon as you tell them that you work in defense, they're like, oh, you mean like bombing children? Okay, there's like 4 providers that will serve you now. I'm like, well, it's actually like SaaS, it's like task management, but whatever, close enough. But yeah, as soon as you say you're in defense, there's like a very small handful of providers that will even return your calls. And so, yeah, I mean, that was another $11,400 a year that I didn't think I'd have to spend, but we do to be able to get ready for it. So there's a lot. There's a lot to be a C3PAO. I would say make sure that you do the research and really understand the cost. There's also like a $15,000 annual fee. You also have to pay $1,000 per assessment just because why not? And I think this actually is a real photo of a CyberAV meeting where someone just whispered in the ear that we just decided to raise the C3PAO fee to $15,000. I think that's what was being said there. So definitely an interesting.
I just learned something. So I know the application fee is like $7,000, but I thought that was like going to be the renewal fee as well. Doesn't have
but that's different than the activation fee. I don't know anymore. All I know is that I keep getting bills and I pay it, and it's what you have to do. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you're not going to shop the market for other cyber accreditation bodies. So I don't really know. I just know it's not cheap. So, and it does change. And it's just, there's a lot going on there. And then we have to get ISO certified in the next 3 years, which I'm sure will be free too. Again, so, I got into this because I wanted essentially a free assessment, but wow, there's some strings attached now. There's a lot. Don't get into this if you just want someone to give you an assessment. It's probably the advice I'd say here is you're going to want to do assessments if you end up going the C3PAO path. But I think it's certainly better than RPO. I do want to share some, I call them secrets, not really secrets, but what I learned during our DIVCAC assessment and what I think for anyone that's going to go through the process with DIVCAC is really, really helpful to know. So just as for a little bit of background, I told DCMA we're going to be a C3PAO. I think August is when we sent off all our paperwork, and they scheduled us for December 6th. So it took a couple of months there. So not bad. We had 5 people working on the CMMC side, which was myself and 4 people that we brought in that we transitioned to W2 from SkillBridge. And for those that don't know, SkillBridge is like the best thing in the world. It's a way that you can bring in active duty service members for 3 to 6 months and have them work for you for free. All you have to do in return is like help them, either hire them or make sure they're set up well to get a job. My philosophy was if I brought people with, at least like Sec Plus, like some basic certification in, and got them CCP, they would get some job, even if not with us. They would, not go hungry when they separate from active duty. And so far, we had 13 last year. All 13 were able to get full-time jobs, and the average salary is like actually decently over $100,000 a year. So I'm very proud of these guys. Pretty much E4, E6. Some have college degrees, most don't. But like, this is it. Like, this is how it should be. Everyone should be doing this. Adopt a SkillBridger, doing our part to help.
Aspire Cyber is definitely going to sign up. I had that on my to-do list.
Yeah, and just if you want to be self-interested, it's the best way to get CCAs because they come in with Sec Plus and a clearance, and so like boom, as soon as they pass 2 pretty easy tests, they're a CCA. So I didn't realize that at the time, but got very lucky there. So yeah, we had the SkillBridgers, and that's how we had all the policies, procedures, documentation, the stuff we're using for a managed service. We had generated ourselves from scratch from the SkillBridgers. We just put in a couple of thousand hours of time to do it. And that's one of the reasons also why we include it in our solution, and essentially not for free, but like we don't charge for that because I didn't have to pay labor rates for getting it created. So it's like the least I could do to pass it on. Scheduled the assessment for 5 days because we didn't have anything physical. It was a virtual assessment. I'd say I didn't know how this was going to play out because we were, I'd say, somewhat audacious and said basically all the physical security controls don't apply to us except alternate work sites. Everything's an alternate work site. The media protection controls don't apply to us. Those were all Google. They handle it. And also, even though the final rule wasn't in effect yet, we're like, actually, 32 CFR 170 says to use VDI, everything's out of scope. So we have no laptops. Have a nice life. And I was afraid they'd be like, no, we're not buying it. But they did. They're like, yeah, that makes sense. So we had a fully virtual assessment and we had to send all of our stuff over before we did. And then, again, certainly have to answer questions about the specifics, but basically just kind of nailed it. I'd say it was very stressful. Probably the only thing worse I've been through is a polygraph. Gives you any comparison. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, especially as a prospective C3PAO, just think about what you're doing to people when you assess them. But no, we were blown away by how quickly we went through it. It was a total of 10 hours of assessment. So we just done the research. I mean, we had done it. Again, you've given the answer guide. Like you've got NIST 171 Alpha and the assessment process. Like you've been given the answers. You just building something around it is the part that's it's hard. So once we got it done, it took about a week. I think I actually got the success letter on my birthday, which was really nice because when you turn 41, like there's nothing good about that. So to get a success letter was a nice one. So here's my secrets. Not really secrets, but really validated through not just the DivCAC assessment, but also we just got a client through a C3PAO assessment. So double validates these secrets. First one is, it's really hard. You have to do what you say you're doing in your SSP. And especially if, like for our solution, we're using Terraform and Ansible and, Google Cloud, like crazy stuff, like stuff that I don't know if a lot of DivCAC assessors have had a lot of experience with. And that's fine. You don't have to be an expert in the technology you're assessing. You just have to follow 171A. So they were adamant that every single thing that we said we do in that SSP, we had to be able to show them. But we didn't do this, but hypothetically, if we had said, we email all thread updates to your staff on Monday at 8 a.m. because you wanted to just like really show that you're doing something, then the assessors can be like, all right, show me some emails where you sent this at 8 a.m. on Monday, right? So spoiler alert, don't write that in your SSP because then they can't hold you to it. That's what's crazy about CMMC because it's compliance and not security. So you don't have to be specific in certain areas. And that's really the second secret is that I would say CMMC is or specificity is your enemy in an assessment and strong references are your friend. Our SSP with like the full preamble and like big letters and all that stuff for our entire virtualized infrastructure and everything else that manages currently 250 users is 58 pages. Because why not? I mean, this is literally what we have for 314. We just refer to other documents because we can change those documents with minimal version control versus having to go change the SSP every time that we do something. So at least for us, we just reference this. Now, I don't actually know if this is possible in Microsoft world because our assessors last week were like, wow, you can just put links to other files in there. Like I thought everyone could. I don't know if pretty easy. Google's only had it for about 15 years, but yeah, it makes it very easy. So that if someone says, I want to see that policy, click on it, and then it opens it up from there. I mean, I can't recommend enough. Use as few words as possible. Like the times that gave me the closest to a heart attack, someone had written something in a policy even that was like a little bit more ambitious than really needed to be, but we had to be able to show the assessors that.
Quick question. So this kind of goes in contrary to what I've been hearing for the past 2 years from people within the CMMC ecosystem. I even heard someone from DivCAC say it, that the average SSP should be anywhere between 100 to 200 pages. So that's not true?
I think the consultants are paid per word, right? I mean, you have to think about what interest does that serve to make it more complex? Does that serve the consultant that's giving you that advice? Or does that serve the small business? And the consultant giving you that advice, how many assessments have they been through? Have they even tried a shorter SSP? Or is it one of those things? I mean, there's just so many logical fallacies. Well, yeah, I mean, Steve made it through. He had a 600-page SSP. Okay, I guess I should make a 600. I mean, there's just so much information in this industry, and it's so frustrating because, again, we had not like in the future of the company on being a C3PAO, we're willing to do what we thought was right. And if we failed, okay, no big deal. And I mean, yeah, this is literally what we had for 314. And it passed the DivCAC assessment and it passed a C3PAO assessment.
That's eye-opening. Anyone in the audience, any attendees have any comments so far, questions? Feel free to come off mute. Otherwise, I'll be asking all the questions. This is mind-blowing.
Zach, How you doing, Zach and Derek? I was curious, did you have to, I've read some of the work that you've done, and thank you, for sharing all of that. Did you have to share your system configuration or based on the scuba targeting stuff?
Not basically. No, neither assessment really went deep into the specific configurations that we did in Workspace. It would be more like, I'm just trying to think of a good example of one that's like, okay, making sure that encryption is used for things leaving the organization. So like we would go in and show in Workspace where we force TLS for all emails and to bounce emails that either come in or go out that don't have TLS on them, for example. So like it was less, they weren't really looking, they weren't expecting anything. They weren't looking at our specific configuration list, even though we mentioned the SSP, but it was more of, okay, now we're on this control, this objective. What do you do to do that? And obviously to be adequate and sufficient, if we did something in Workspace or something in GCP and something somewhere else, we had to show all the places that we do it, but also was pretty straightforward there. So yeah, I'd say I'm glad we put our configuration list, but in either assessment was it analyzed, and there was no expectation that it had to go through Scuba. It was more of just show and tell. And someone asked, if include a verbal interview. I mean, yeah, like we were on with them for 10 hours on Teams, like going objective by objective. I mean, really starting with 311 Alpha. They're like, all right, what do you do? How's this work? And we had to show them. And it was thankfully, both the DIPCAC and C3PAO did their job and they read all the stuff we sent you. We had to send them all the policies, procedures, everything. And so they had already gone through and said, okay, we see there's a policy for this, procedure for this, and maybe there were some questions. And yeah, Ref, we wrote every single thing by ourselves and did it all from scratch because obviously there are organizations that sell templates for $5,000, which again, just the insanity of this market. And you can actually get away with charging someone $5,000 for Word templates. Like that should just not exist. And so our way, again, of taking this on is, okay, we're going to do it from scratch, not use anything else. And again, just build it as simple as possible. I know there's something called, it's actually someone I know, one of the players in the space, he has this thing called EPU. I guess it's like a 6 million page thing, like access control policy is like 100 pages. Like that might be too much of a good thing because one, no one's ever going to follow a 100-page policy. And two, like you need to make sure that you can do that. So I just think, again, there's a lot of bad information and unless you've been through these assessments, like you don't know, like tell them what you're doing, go into great detail, right? Be very transparent or very open about this stuff. All you're doing is creating more opportunities for them to find a problem and they'll run it down versus like we do risk assessment updates quarterly with our clients. So we tell in our SSP that we do it annually because guess what? We do it quarterly, that's more. And we're good. So again, this is not security, this is compliance. And I will say, again, I can't, your knowledge may vary. All I can say is we built a virtual desktop infrastructure from scratch and all our policies, procedures, and documentation from scratch and made it through 2 assessments in probably record time. I can't say that would work for a, traditional GCC high where people are printing CUI and like, putting on their refrigerator or whatever people do with print CUI, it may be more complicated. We didn't have a physical inspection as well. So I just say what worked for us and also what I'm again, as a C3PAO and a lead CCA now, you can only do so much. Like if someone says, well, like through 314, OC, yeah, this is the objective. So not the whole control. I mean, if I saw that, I would say, okay, have you granted this to separate individuals? All right, I see you've got your policy that says you do that. And then for this, the role definitions that show the people with the different privileges. Okay. I mean, what else do I need to see? Like, why add more? You're just opening yourself up for issues. Let's see.
And Zach, I might have missed it, but you mentioned your MSP offering and documentation. How much do y'all charge for that add-on for SSP documentation, policy, procedures?
No, we don't charge anything for anything specific. For the MSP side, we just go all in and say you get 100% solution. I mean, it's expensive, right? We charge $199 a month per user, but you can do month to month if you want. Darius, you're on mute.
And Ed White, that was my reaction too when he first told me that. I was like, hold on, wait, where's the documentation charge? Where's that add-on, the line item? He said it's all in 100%. I was like, wait, like in the security, the system security plan too? All in.
Yeah, I mean, it helps. I have thousands of hours of free help from skill bridgers, but at the same time, it's just honest the right thing to do. And I don't like nickel and diming people. Yeah, so we do it all in price. It includes everything, and yeah, we just think it's the right way to go. But yeah, I'll get more to that later. Secret 3. This was like a little bit of a jab at Microsoft because when I first made the slide, they weren't FedRAMP authorized. GCC High wasn't. They finally got it. So good for them. They finally managed to get their FedRAMP authorization. But the SSP is not a requirement for an assessment, but I highly recommend that you do get a copy of it, especially if you're inheriting these things like the FIPS encryption, media protection, physical security, things like that. I just reference like for different things. I just referenced Google's SSP, which is like 600 pages. And that was enough. That was enough for DipCAC and for the C3PAO assessment. If someone wanted to see it, the actual words on there, but because it was basically like one of the questions was, is there any way that we could essentially turn off encryption in Google? And showing them the SSP where it says, right, this is mandatory service provider implemented corporate level, like the users like us don't even get to weigh in, right? Just really helps assuage concerns. Like, yeah, it's literally impossible to turn off FIPS encryption in Google. Yeah, I know the Microsoft side, but at least on the Google side, it was tremendously helpful. And then, of course, no matter what happens, something will go wrong, and that sucks. It's 320 things that you have to do perfectly and have all tied together. And I just my ADHD doesn't allow me to be able to keep track of all that stuff. Like something's going to go wrong. And yeah, little things here and there that came up. It may happen on the DipCAC assessment, happen on C3PAO assessment. Like this is a dumb thing. Like we had somehow like copied over the level 1 control name in its totality where it says FCI, not CUI. And there was a bit of a question about if FCI encompasses CUI, which it absolutely does, but the assessor said it doesn't. So we're like, okay, we'll change it to CUI. Sorry. You get little mistakes like that. You can very minor mistakes you can make, but it's still very stressful. And I don't like it. But just I guess the best thing that we did to get ready for this was going through the SSP a couple of times. But really, much as consultants are, sometimes a dumpster fire, we found this very like a specific FedRAMP assessor who had done this work for FedRAMP, and so knew the 153 side of it, and went through it with us and said, because that's the downside when it's all, people new to the game, like we don't have that deep experience of like what it actually looks like in an assessment. So we had the expert say, this is this control, this is what it's saying, but this is what you really need to show. And they pushed us to create an authorization boundary diagram, which is not required for CMMC, but made it way easier to show people if we had that already done. So, I would say that we would not have made it without our expert, which is good. Yeah, assessors are people too, right? They can be tough. CAC was very tough, but I think they ultimately want you to succeed. No one wants to fail anyone. That would be, I hope not anyway. The last secret that I learned from my assessment is, the other thing that saved our bacon was the NSA's solutions. I'm biased because I worked there as a civilian for a long time. And so it just blows my mind that the NSA is like publicly offering stuff now and talking about what they do. It's a lot changed since I left, but it's great. I mean, they do all kinds of good stuff like protected DNS, which meets a couple of controls. They have this autonomous pen testing they can do externally or internally. Like you want to, blow an assessor's mind when it comes to like vulnerability assessments. Like, oh, here's my beautiful PDF that I just had generated from this internal pen test. And I mean, it's great. It was very good to check off some of those boxes with the NSA side of things. It was very helpful. Highly recommended and very free. All right. Any questions before I talk about C? Okay. I'm new to this world. I've only been a C3PAO for a month and 22 days. But
newly minted.
It's been a long month and 22 days. So I put this together today. These are my initial thoughts. We became the first new C3PAO because, right, they had like 58 or 59 pre-authorized, and then they kind of changed the rules on them and made, you need 3 CCAs, and they basically have to have security clearances essentially. And so it got hard. And there were only 31 that got reauthorized on day one. So like we dropped like 27, 28. And there were 4 new ones on day one. We were told the first one that made it through the whole process. And we were able to do that for a couple of reasons. And I really think Skillbridge, going back to that, was just like a cheat code. I mean, these guys are like, 23 and they did enterprise IT in the Air Force, but they have Security Plus and they have a clearance. And so again, these tests are not hard. CCP, CCA, this is not, if you know cybersecurity, this is not bad. It's just annoying. But I mean, you could just have them take CCP, get some experience, take CCA, and it takes like 3 or 4 days for their clearance to transition into a tier 3 assessment. We basically generate CCAs. And so, I mean, just, candidly, like we just started our own Skillbridge program back up because last week, one of a client said that a C3PAO told them that there's an assessor shortage, and so they're likely to raise their prices soon. And that's why they should act now, which, sure, that is one way to deal with the problem. The way that we chose to deal with the problem was to just create more CCAs so we don't have to raise our price. So we're going to start bringing in more folks.
Quick question on that, Zach. So with the skill bridge and kind of outlining your business model, that's some serious IP you're sharing. That's a significant competitive advantage that you could have that you can keep to yourself. Why are you sharing that information?
I was just the right thing to do. I don't know. I'm not too worried about it. Like I said, it's just kind of fun. It's fun to call out some of the others in the community for being the charlatans that they are and exploiting small businesses to further their own interests. It actually got me blocked on LinkedIn by someone that I shall not name when I suggested that if they charge $250,000 for a 5-person company, national security is probably not their top priority. I got blocked. I'm losing a lot of sleep over it. So yeah, it's just the silliness, like the fact that some C3PAOs require you to sign an NDA. Like what? Why? What the hell's wrong with you people? Like that's insane. That should never be the case. Yeah, we noticed you get CCAs, and we have 4 right now, and we're going to make more. Other C3PAOs now, because of poor planning, they don't have the staff, and so they have to build teams of 1099s. And my understanding is the 1099s can get away with gouging like $10,000 per assessment, even if it's a 2-day assessment. It tries with the cost. So you have to have essentially 3 CCAs on every team. You need 2 on the team and then 1 doing QCs. Those that didn't plan well are having to pay a lot for it. But then the main thing that drove me to the transparency thing is just self-preservation. How can a company? It was just so obvious when it became a C3PAO. Start having these initial calls. We go through and see if I have this. I can write this down. Mating ritual with these companies of like, let me tell you about our methodology and how much we love the cat. No, these one of the price. If we're the 10th C3PAO they've talked to, just tell them the freaking price so they can know. It's allegedly commoditized in theory, right? We all pass the same test, we all have the same certification, and assessment from us should be the same as an assessment from any other C3PAO. I don't know. I did 3 or 4 of those. I'm like, I can't handle this anymore. Like I'm wasting 30 minutes of my life just to tell people our price. So we decided, just as we do for our MSP, decided, you know what, we're just gonna figure out what the average price is, have it, at least for the virtual assessments, and then just put it out there, see what happens. And also just give companies some certainty. And I don't know what other C3P, again, I haven't signed the NDA, so I don't know what C3PAOs charge, and if they charge for travel to locations and meals, and if they charge for that 10-day reevaluation period after the assessment, and if they charge for a poem closeout, which they probably do. Some do, I would imagine, but they shouldn't. I mean, so we're taking a stand that all these things should be included in the assessment cost, and others can do it or not, whatever. But hopefully enough people will see it. Is our price? So we believe that the average C3PAO price, regardless of format, is between $50,000 and $65,000. And so we picked 31 because it was about half, and also because we have to pay the mafia protection to Cyber AB every time we do an assessment. So we actually only get 30 of that. So we pay $1,000. As far as the other ones, Codex Openness, we don't really want to do those. So we're not trying to disrupt that market, but we're told it's anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 less than average of the other ones. So,
Zach, for a moment, I know we got starting to see a lot of comments in the chat. Feel free to come off the mute, or I can start reading some of these. But again, this is informal. We're just friends talking. So feel free to come off mute if you have questions. This is a great time to answer.
I really appreciate that, Michael. Yeah, it's just I tell everyone, I know it's not my self-interest to tell everyone to go hire all the best talent on Skillbridge, because then I won't be able to get it myself. But if it results in more, especially enlisted service members transitioning into full-time jobs, I mean, that's far more important than us having dibs on the talent. And there's a lot out there. We started the program back up. We've already had like 5 or 6. This guy that's like a CISSP top secret clearance, like this guy could just he would literally be a lead CCA in 2 months if he joins our program. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so yeah, I guess we could raise our price because there's a CCA shortage. We could just make more, but whatever floats your boat. I will. I'll close on this. You didn't talk about my solution very much, but that wasn't the point of this conversation. But just to be able to show, as far as I know, well, 1, we're the only one that shows pricing, and 2, certainly the only one that's also C3PAO that does both sides of it. I call it the transparency challenge. Just so that's what you got. Microsoft MSPs. How much does it cost to get someone 100% compliant? I just want literally anyone to pick me up on what I call the CMMC transparency challenge. Just tell us how much it's going to cost. Oh, it's 100,000, but then that doesn't include the 3 work packages that are optional, but you actually have to do to get compliant. Okay, why don't you include all those prices? And just no one will take me up on this, because I'm going a hunch here. This is not a great way for them to make money, and this might make it harder for them to get their second yacht or hire that third, full-time influencer. That being said, though, if I charge $250,000, I would I'm a full-time influencer. I'd have some very snazzy events and marketing. Sadly, I don't because, can't really do that with this, but it just seems like the right thing to do. And again, I either think one of the two things will happen, maybe both, especially now that we've gotten a client through a third-party assessment. Either people will figure this out and hopefully, even on the Microsoft side, if it's possible, come up with a way to have a all-inclusive, because the policy procedure documentation, that's not Google exclusive. It's easy with Google. But yeah, just have a way to do it and start to put pressure on the other MSPs and put pressure on me. I'd love to have to lower my price because I'm feeling the pressure. I mean, as it is right now, the client that made it through the assessment last week paid roughly 1/200th of what they would have paid a Microsoft MSP to become assessment ready. So I think we have some time to
wait a minute,
to get ready
Zach.
for it. But
When you say so passing the CMMC assessment, level 2 assessment, it's the same assessment. It's not like a brand name assessment they got or luxury assessment. Are they all the same? Going to be the same certificate?
so you get the same PDF at the end, yeah. So you do. I mean, it's all the same. So yeah, the client that made it through, they're called Breakpoint Labs. They're open about what they went through. I mean, they signed up with us in December. They're month to month, so they could walk away one at a time, and they had spent $1,300 between December and February, and I sat on as their representative with the C3PAO for 15 hours or whatever it was. Didn't charge. So their entire investment to now be CMMC level 2 certified was $1,305. So I mean, you could pay $250,000, I guess, if you really like Flippy or whatever it is that drives you to a GCC high. But I think this is probably better for a lot of small businesses, but it could be wrong.
We should have did the trigger warning first, Zach, but you know what?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, let me back up a second. If you're on this call and you are $50,000 to $100,000 in a GCCI implementation from an RPO dumpster fire, and you're still not fully compliant, there are people you can talk to. There is help. Your life is worth it. I would say just get the help you need, and then move over to Google Workspace and get certified. Oh yeah, so that's the two things. Either, and maybe both. This will help put some pressure on prices and bring some transparency to the market. Ultimately help small businesses and help national security, or maybe one day I will just get thrown into the back of a van, rendered to a black site in Redmond, Washington, and tortured by Sergeant Nadella.
So Zach, have you gotten any death threats yet, or any of that?
Making a session of like a mean tweets session. There's some good stuff that's been said.
Oh yeah, I'm tracking it for you.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, one of my new favorites that you shared was, this has to be a scam. There's no way I would have been able to do this and have someone pay $1,300 because the cyber insurance costs 10 times more than that. Like, that was the actual argument, the reason why this wasn't possible. And that's true. If they were my only client, I would be worried.
It's highly scalable.
Almost 50, so I'm not super worried about a single client. Yeah, the cognitive dissonance and the logical fallacies that I think make you fall for GCCI in the first place. It's just crazy to see. One, call it a marketing scam because I didn't include the price of the C3PAO assessment when I said they spent $1,300.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they spent. It doesn't matter. I mean, just to get assessment ready. That was the whole goal of this. That's the thing that the Microsoft MSPs charge you $250,000 for the comparison. It's not the assessment is, I mean, I'm trying. I can't assess people I help, but I mean, hopefully they pay $31,000 for the assessment. Probably not, but I don't know. Not my business.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to see. So yeah, been called a marketing scam, been called a fraud. I don't think I'm gonna get a Christmas card from Microsoft, but there's been some good stuff. Been told this is a scam because it doesn't take into account physical hardware on-prem, which that's right. It doesn't. I mean, this can. I mean, it makes it more complicated, but the vast majority of companies that I've talked to, especially if they've won a SIPR award or something like that, or they're wanting to go to do ITAR work and they need to complete a DD 2345, all these things, they need a CMMC score. And so they can either lie about it or they can get a real one. And if you sign up for our service, there's 4 shared responsibilities, 4 things you have to do yourself. Well, you see it on the chart here. But legitimately, you sign up, we onboard you on a Thursday, we go over your SSP on Friday, you make sure you do all the training for your people, which is free. You do the background check, you do the training, we do an hour instant response test and risk assessment, and you've got a 110. You've legitimately got a 110 as far as you can do a self-report within a week. And then you'd be ready for an assessment immediately because we do it all. The things that you've done. Shared responsibilities are, we both maintain the authorized user list, right? Client tells us who their authorized users are. We have to trust them. And then we keep the AUL, we do the instant response testing, the risk assessments, clients identify power users if they want people to make groups and share drives. And then the customer responsibility, those 4 objectives are all 3.1.22, where you have to review data that's posted publicly to make sure it doesn't have CUI. We do not want to get in that business, but we consider it part of our solution because we give you the policy procedure, we put your name on it, we give you the public release authority tracker, we explain how it needs to work, and in our quarterly meetings, we make sure you're doing it. So, we don't actually do the review, but we consider it part of the solution. Let's see. What is the reason why Google Workspace is so much cheaper than GCC High? Because
$1 million question.
Microsoft. Yes, many millions of dollars. I have opinions. I'll try to stick with facts here. So the fact is, in 2009, Google was hacked by China, Operation Aurora. And following that Chinese hack, Google leadership said, I don't care how much it costs, this is never going to happen again. And so they undertook a 10-year effort to rebuild everything from the ground up. And so this is where zero trust came from. Like, that is literally zero trust is what they implemented after the Chinese hack to find a way to make sure it never happened again. And so if someone does attack, it doesn't cause as much damage as it did last time. So that's what Google's had 15 years to build. And what that allows is for them to apply advanced security all across their environment. Google doesn't have some servers in Reston that they call the GovCloud or whatever. Their entire US-based infrastructure is FedRAMP High. So you get you pay for Google Workspace Enterprise Plus is $30 a month, about to be 18 with the CMMC discount. And you have, it's not, because Microsoft goes out of its way to say commercial O365 is not compliant, but commercial workspace is. And a order of magnitude. The challenge is that Microsoft can't do a lot because of their obsolete legacy architecture. The fact that if you need to go from GCC to GCC High because you have ITAR, you have to do full migration. That's insane. In Google, you just have a license that restricts all of your technical support to the United States, US persons. And then if you no longer need ITAR, you just take the license away, right? It's a completely different architecture. It's just they've had a 15-year head start on Microsoft. And for those that remember the attack, the China-Russia stuff that came out last summer or summer 23, if you look at that report, it's called CSRB. The CSRB report, it is damning. It is crazy. So basically, Microsoft got pwned by China, and they don't even know how China did it. And Microsoft's response was to lie to the government and say things that they knew were not true to make it sound not as bad as it was. It is not in the best interest of national security. But Google, again, they went through this in 2010, and they're 15 years ahead of Microsoft in that sense in security. And so, thanks for sharing that link. That's why I don't know why anyone buys GCC High. It's really slow and it doesn't work well. Because that's the other thing too, is we found a way for people to get the GCC High F3 license. So it's like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneDrive, Visio, Teams, and you can access it in our solution. And it's $57 a user a year. So for people that are just really dedicated Clippy, but there's a legitimate reason, right? People want to still be able to send Teams invites on GCC High. That's fair. Yeah. Okay. Pay $5 a month and you can do that. And then that's all you really need GCC High for. So yeah, I don't know what people.
And I'll say real quick. So as far as from CPN standpoint, for people who are attending, we are vendor neutral. So as you know, we've had Microsoft on and we have AWS coming in a couple of weeks. But for me on a personal standpoint, and I wanted to just make sure you all have the information, I hands down think this is the best solution for small businesses, whether that's Zach, whoever presents the best solution, any solution, you can come present it. But my personal opinion is I just don't know what's the defense is, how can you rebut this? I just don't know. Other than saying it's a scam or a pyramid scheme, I just don't know. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there.
I'm not vendor neutral, so I can say these things. But I think that's why my National Guard unit named me the A6, the director of comm for the Texas Air National Guard, because Microsoft.
You're kind of humble too. I think you left out the MIT part. Did you mention that? You went to MIT?
I did. It was not to the.
So it's the way I think it's relevant is when people say this is impossible. How could it's no silver bullet. It's all the stuff I've been hearing. No silver bullet. CMMC is going to take you 9 to 18 months. XYZ. Maybe this guy from MIT and NSA and CIA figure something out, him and his team. I don't know. Never say never.
Yeah. No, it's very nice. I really appreciate that. And maybe that is a way to spin it. I'm not a compliance guy. I hate compliance people, which makes it awkward to be a lead CCA and a C3PAO, but I do because it's compliance for the sake of compliance. And it's not, okay, how do we make this as simple as possible, but still secure? And I had the luxury of being able to start from scratch and just say, okay, well, here's the 320 things I have to do. How can I build this in the least expensive, most simple, most user-friendly way possible? I mean, anyone could have done this. I mean, it was certainly helpful that we had, certainly the consulting side, because we didn't have to take outside investment, and it was pretty expensive to go through all this process, but we were able to self-invest in that. But I think that's why I don't have a lot of sympathy for the ones that are trying to tell people it takes 18 months and $250,000 and that there's no better way, because they've never tried and they don't have a growth mindset. They have a closed mindset or fixed mindset, and anyone could do this. I mean, there's so many people that are way more qualified than me that have been in compliance for a long time, that have been doing this stuff before, that know GCC high, that probably could find a way to automate some of this stuff or create the policy, but they don't. They'd rather charge you $5,000 for Word templates, or they'd rather charge you $100,000 to configure your thing and not get you fully compliant. That it's unfortunate, and it all works, I guess, as long as everyone's willing to go along with it. But I didn't join this to go along with this. I don't want to see good companies leave the defense industrial base because they don't want to spend $250,000 to get compliant. So yeah, that's why I took it on. I'm very passionate about it. I still hate compliance. Don't get me wrong, and I hate CMMC, but know the enemy.
Gotcha. So as we're getting close to the end, I still got a lot of questions in the chat. Does anyone want to come off the mute? But in regards to the invitation, so I had a chance to interview Zach on my podcast on Friday, and I got a lot of these insights on Friday, and my mind is still blown. Just like I'm sure many of yours is, where it's like, it's too good to be true. It's not. In regards to, you gave the invitation in terms of you're challenging companies to use your same business model. You're not secretive about it, and beat you on pricing and beat you on impact and delivering to the DIB, especially with veterans. So share that call to action for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, let me share one more thing here. So yeah, I welcome anyone that wants to try and do this. I've done a lot of the work to kind of figure some of this stuff out, but again, it's stuff's not hard, just maybe a little tedious and takes time. So yeah, there's two things. So anyone that's out there, especially if you're a veteran or still serving, you think this is an interesting field to get into, and it really is. It's super interesting because it's a perfect mix of military, but also still civilian. And a lot of the people that own these small businesses, they're veterans too. So it's great. Like, it's a win-win. Anyone that's interested in getting in space, I'm happy to help in whatever appropriate way I can. If you want to do a GCCI thing, great. If you're going to do it better, I can't help you with the technical stuff, but I can at least explain how we became an MSP and what we do. I would love to have more interest in the field at lower prices for everyone. And then for everyone else, this is what I mentioned earlier, the transparency challenge. And it's on our website, I put on LinkedIn, and may tag a couple of Microsoft MSPs here and there. I just, as someone who, if you're an OSC going through the process, just get answers to these questions. It just is not that hard. You shouldn't have to sign an NDA to get these answers. How much is it going to cost to get certified? How much is it going to cost to be fully 100% assessment ready? And if the answer is, well, we're an 80% solution, what they don't tell you is that they didn't do the hardest 20% on purpose. There's a lot of, and I know we don't have time to go into it, but there's a lot of enclaves and 80% solutions out there that result in a lot of broken hearts and crushed dreams when companies realize that they're still dropping thousands of hours of work or $100,000 of labor on an OSC to do, right? So like, if you're not getting an SSP from your provider because they have partners that do that, or you're not getting policies, procedures because they use AI to generate them, I tell you what, that's not going to work out well for you, I promise. And it's not that hard. Again, we built this from scratch with skill bridgers and a little bit of money. Like, the big MSPs they probably spent more on their influencer, full-time influencers than we spent putting this together. So like, anyone could do this, they just choose not to, and that makes me very annoyed. So if you want to do things the right way and do the right thing for the small businesses and do the right thing for the defense industrial base and national security, I'm happy to help you. Kenny, more about the stack and CMMC space. So we run Chasm Workspaces is the underlying technology we run inside of Google Cloud Platform's IL5 special workloads. So Chasm is the infrastructure that we can control. And then within that, because all of GCP is FedRAMP High, basically any virtual machines that a customer wants to run, whether it's a Linux software developer workstation or a Windows desktop, or someone wants 4 NVIDIA T4s to do AI research at CUI level, we can do that in GCP. It's no problem. It's all within the boundary and the baseline. So we can spin up and spin down. The standard, like the price you see here, that's for just a Chrome browser that's running on FIPS mode, Ubuntu Linux. But yeah, that's enough. Yeah, anyone, again, very simple. Chasm's great. I would recommend that. It supports Windows. I really think someone could do this. Just do it. Do it in Azure, do whatever else. It's not that hard. Like, I have a degree in public relations. I could figure it out with some military interns. It's not that hard. Make it hard.
Science.
You can say Steve had a 300-page SSP, so I guess I better make a 300-page SSP. But it doesn't have to be. I did. One more mean tweet. Someone said, getting a client to GCC hire or getting them compliant was the hardest thing they've ever done in their career. It'd be kind of nice to actually have a career that's that easy. But if it's the hardest thing you've ever done, you might be doing it wrong. That's all I'll say. So anyway, I'm here. Happy to answer questions.
That's a good thing to close out on. How to get in contact with you, Zach? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, if you want to see my non-vendor neutral post, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Zach Walker. Also Zach ZACH at ATXDefense.com. If you're in Austin, hit me up. Buy you a beer. And especially if you're a veteran or active duty service member, I would love to help and chat. Again, I can be vendor neutral when I talk to veterans, I promise.
All right, Zach. Well, I really appreciate it. I've invited several C3PAOs to come onto the roundtable. You're the first one to actually accept the invitation, show up, and be transparent. Really appreciate what you're doing. This
you've done some of the NDA, huh? And a question to address at the end. So cost of C3PAO. So it was $15,000 for the activation, $6,000 or $7,000 for the annual fee, $11,400 for the cyber insurance, and then of course just having our staff. It would pay a CCA, $100,000 a year, so that kind of cost. And that said, I'd say if you don't count labor, it'll probably cost you $1,000 to get through the process. Because the DICPAC assessment is free, which is nice. So yeah, I'd say budget for that. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks for staying late, guys. Thank you, Jeff. You're awesome.
Appreciate
I really appreciate it.
I'll be in touch. Much appreciated.
Yes,
I'll share out this recording, y'all, probably about a couple of days or a week or so, and I'll be sending out that podcast with Zach coming out soon too. So stay tuned for that and spread the word. Let your defense contractors know that there are options. There are really 100% solutions. Well, right now it's only 100% solution, but hopefully there'll be more.
It does not have to be an expensive nightmare. That's what I'll leave you with.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach.
Bye.